Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. Let's just check. 1 second. Just testing the audio. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, all good? If somebody can give me a yes, that would be amazing. Let me just close this a little bit. It's a bit bright. Amazing. Thank you. As you can tell, this is my first time doing this. So I thought I'd just jump on and kind of chat to you live and kind of like answer a few questions. Had quite a few come in, which has been really cool. And yeah, if anybody's got anything they want to, throw my way. This is my first time. I don't know if anybody's ever done a YouTube live thing, but there's like a little live studio thing set up, which is kind of cool. And yeah, but the little sound bar is not moving, so I've got no idea if this is live or not. So there might be a slight delay if I share my screen or share anything, but hopefully it's all going to be good. So let me just, I'm going to get started on some of the questions that people have sent in because they're amazing and they've been really kind of insightful and also useful to understand how I can help you in terms of, the answers that I can give you and so on. There was a lot of common things that came across, so that'll be good to discuss. Okay, so let's get straight into it because there's loads of questions and I'd like to get through as many as possible. Obviously, I don't know all the answers. I'll just give you best understanding and best guess according to what I've found from working with studios and like people being hired in studios and their kind of feedback as well. Obviously, somebody might tell you something slightly different, but this is my my best guess. So the first one was basically a lot of stuff is always around show reels, and this one was about what important things you should look for or should put into a show reel when applying to a studio as a junior animator. Now, that's something junior would be regarded as kind of a more entry level position. The further up the rank you go, the more you can kind of lean on the stuff that you've done at other studios. It gets a lot easier in that respect. So it's that junior role, that first step in a studio is often the difficult one. Is anybody here like looking to gain that first step into a studio? I'm just having a look in the chat to see if there's anybody. But yes, there's one. There's Jamie saying yes. Yeah, so basically it's not an easy one. Now there's a couple of places that are doing some cool schemes to help you get your first credit, or if you don't have a credit at all, or to help you get your foot in the door if maybe your first credit isn't kind of like enough, you haven't got enough showreel material, or you're kind of trying to, I don't know, move from one thing that was maybe more motion graphicsy into something that is more character animation. I'm just going to shout out Daily Madness Studio. They do this first credit initiative, which is amazing. I'm not sure if it's just for Irish people because it's to do with the funding, but have a look anyway. They had first credit and second, maybe something or other. Have a look. They're really good, and they're trailblazing with that kind of thing. So hopefully more studios will pick up on that kind of thing. If there are more that are doing it, I'm sorry, I'm just not aware about them. But yeah, Daily Madness in Ireland are doing a first credit initiative, and it's worth just kind of asking them, or well, before you ask, maybe have a read about it. But in terms of the showreel for a junior animator, the thing you've got to do, and I give this advice quite a lot, is try and think about it from the recruiter or the person who's going to look at your showreel's point of view. So think about you if they have a show. Yeah, Daily Madness is the studio, Jamie. Yeah, that's it. And if you have a show, kind of they have a show in mind, you're coming onto it, it's not the first time it's been made, then you need to kind of sort of hit that style. Now, half of that work has been done for you because you can watch the episodes that already exist and just kind of go, am I moving things in this kind of way, in this with the same sort of energy? Can I portray these characters in this sort of way, and so on? That's really what you should be looking for when you look at your show reel. And you look at, by the way, this funky little glove is from drawing on their not setting a trend. Yeah, so does your stuff replicate their kind of style? That's the main one. If it doesn't, then what you've got to do is maybe think about doing a little piece that can show that kind of style. So a good example would be if you have a show that's got some, I don't know, every episode you've seen has got kind of these real bits of pathos and kind of emotion and kind of a mid to close up shot. You've got to do some real nice facial animation, maybe some proper acting in there, but your reel is very like wham bam and all over the place and lots of action. They're going to maybe ask you to do that anyway in a test. Now, the test is obviously something that is going to be a test anyway for those skills. But if you've got it in your showreel, it's a good way of kind of, it's almost a bit of a backup. I don't think many studios really talk about this, but if you, I know from looking at showreels, if somebody's got it in their reel and then they do the test and the test isn't great, like they don't really quite get it, I'll kind of go back to them and say, how long does it take you to do that bit? Because I'm kind of interested. I can see that you've done it before. So, maybe you were nervous, maybe you had a load of other stuff on. Most of the time when people are doing tests, they're doing them for free, which is, not ideal. So you might not have a lot of time for it. So that's something to bear in mind. What else we got here? Yeah, so in terms of that initial junior animator sort of show reel, the other thing is to think about just trying to get a good range. If you're going for preschool animation, and then try and make sure the stuff that you have is preschool. If it's all kind of like PG and above in terms of sort of censorship, then it might be something, they'll probably be able to see through and say, the animation's great, but can you do this sort of style? And if the biggest falling point for a lot of people's show reels tends to be, they're a hand-drawn animator and they want to do rigged animation, cut out like Toon Boom stuff that we do with the courses on the academy. Those sort of things are a bit of a falling point, because a studio will go, it's a bit of a leap, for me to, they're a great animator, but if they don't know how to use the software, that's going to potentially be a problem. Okay, so and this isn't me guessing. I've had a lot of these conversations with studios where I've helped them recruit. They just are kind of, it's like a bet, like you're betting on the weird analogy, but I don't know, you're betting on some horse racing and you see this horse trot by. It looks like really muscular and athletic, and it looks really up for it. The jockey's like this tiny little person who looks like at one with the horse. I don't really like horse racing myself, so I'm not sure why I'm using this analogy, but anyway, and then you see another one and it's kind of like looks really old and tired and just doesn't want to race. Which one are you going to go for? I'm kind of trying to pull that analogy right back to animation. You've got to be that one who gives the confidence to the person who's looking at your reel, so that they go, this person can do exactly what, I'm putting confidence behind this reel, behind that they're going to be able to do this job amazingly well and just slot right in. The other thing that I am going to mention, I know it's not in this question specifically, but I'm going to mention that it's about you as well. Now, it's not so much remote work, things like that. People seem to forget that the quality of the person is really important in terms of, people want to work with nice people. They want to work with people who they're going to get on with. They don't just want like a robot drone who's just going to sit there and animate. Some studios will, but nice places to work generally are going to want a human who's nice, and that's you. Like, be yourself, because that's your biggest selling point. Nobody else can be you, and just get that across. Don't try and like mold yourself into some sort of like corporate drone, because a lot of people are going to try and unpick, and that's why they ask those kind of questions. What are your hobbies? What else are you interested in? Those sort of things. So don't hide or shy away from those. Just having a look at the questions. Okay, so we've got something in the chat here about the little series that John's done on props. So yeah, the thing about that series is because people often get into rigging through doing, props and things. They start in that kind of area, which is where that idea came from. John wanted to test out kind of making some videos. He's done a really nice job, and he had his first credit at the studio in Helsinki called Gigglebug, and he came to me when he was sort of like I'd done some training where he was at university, and then he was building this rig, and then we kind of agreed to have this kind of little chat on a video, and then from there he went and got his credit and had this kind of whirlwind sort of first experience in animation, and then has been doing these videos. So yeah, good to hear that people like them. But yeah, there are going to be some other series. That's the plan. The thing about YouTube is it's like this amazing distraction that takes up lots of time, and so it's fun to do, but it's like it could be a full-time job very easily. So you've seen probably like little gaps in the videos at points, some big gaps. um, it's not an easy one to do consistently, but I have a bit of a plan now. And yeah, the sort of positive comments on things like John's videos is really good also for John to hear, because he's doing it because he enjoys it as well. And yeah, so if you've got any other things that you'd like to see, I do also want to focus on things that aren't necessarily just like to get you a job, because a lot of the time the job comes from your individual creative skills that you've built up. Like you obviously have to apply them to the studio or the style of the show that you're working on, but your individual talents are the things that kind of help you get noticed, and um, they're the things that make it interesting as well. So I kind of want to balance that fostering the difference between the corporate and kind of fit into a certain sort of style and fit into a studio system, and then also your individuality and keeping your artistic soul alive whilst you do that sort of thing. So a series on some of those different things would probably be in the pipeline. Okay, so rigging showreel. I'm going to cover that quickly. Very similar to this is just a general advice for what to put in a rigging showreel. So with a rigging showreel, these are kind of a new thing just to demo what you've done. Really, the thing you've got to be looking at is just trying to show how the thing is put together and kind of just put it to video. So imagine you give a rig to somebody and they're just messing around and having a look inside the rig and the cool stuff that you've done and the structure, the hierarchy, and how you've laid it out, and the systems and the methods that you've got in place. If you were watching over their shoulder as they explored your rig, or you were showing them the rig and you were filming it, that's kind of what a rigging showreel should be. Obviously with a bit of an edit. So if there was a bit where you were like, sorry, if you were saying to somebody, hang on a minute, I'm just trying to find this bit, you'd cut that bit out in a showreel. But you want to make sure it's just like animation, really. It's clarity of communication. So you've got to make sure it's nice and clear. You don't do anything too fancy, like crazy cuts and stuff and effects where the person watching it starts to go, how did they get to that part of the rig? I don't understand what's going on. So lay it out really nice and easy to understand. I don't mean necessarily slow, but just clarity, and make it shorter rather than longer. You can always, provide the rig as well. I mean, people get nervous about doing that, but just throw it out there. If somebody's going to steal your stuff, they're going to steal your stuff. Don't want to put a downer on it, but it's unlikely that they really care about stealing your stuff anyway. So just share your rig. More than likely, you'll get more positive things come from it than negative things by putting something out there. And make sure, same thing as an animation reel, you put your contact information on at the end for a good amount of time, and at the start for at least 5 seconds, and make sure you say what sort of job title, role you want. I've seen so many showreels where they don't say like character animation reel, uh, and it'll start off with a little bit of something that I think is all of a sudden going to be motion graphics, and then it goes into character animation, and I'm like, I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at here. So yeah, make sure it's nice and specific and clear, and you should be good. Okay, where to look out for remote Toon Boom job opportunities. So animatedjobs.com, that's really good for animation jobs. At least it used to be. I think it's still pretty good. That's a good little website to check. You may find, I don't know, spreadsheets of jobs and things. I know there's a Google Sheets thing going around at some point. I get a little bit nervous of like really, really, uh, where somebody kind of animated jobs is a great example of something that is really good and it works. But often, if there's one source where everybody's going to, that generally means it's super high turnover. We're talking like tens of thousands of people are checking it. So that can be difficult to, it can just be like saturation of the market kind of thing. So the best thing is really to, if you're looking for remote opportunities, even when you say that, you're still going to probably start from things closer to your time zone, maybe like 4 hours maximum difference. I normally say 2 is about the max you're really comfortable with. People don't really seem to think about that, but there'll be a reason why a lot of people in the UK or Northern Europe don't get Australian freelance jobs, and vice versa. Like, Americans tend to not do quite as much freelance work in Europe as Europeans do because of the time difference. Like it's, you can still get it, don't get me wrong, but there's just that thing of you tend to work still in and around your time zone. I know a lot of people in Britain who are doing freelance work for basically people in Britain. So it's that kind of thing. It's a gentle approach. It doesn't go crazy. Now, if you live in somewhere far flung where there's not, from my point of view, it seems far flung, but for you, it's just home. But somewhere where maybe there's not so many animation studios, or at least an animation industry, then look at your nearest industry. So if you are in a place in Southeast Asia, but there isn't much animation in terms of where you are, then look elsewhere in Southeast Asia and maybe have a little look at, you're on that kind of time zone where you could pick up some Australian stuff. And realistically, cost of living in Australia versus Southeast Asia might put you in a good position. Now, I don't want to go too much into this, but if you are applying for work, if you're in a lower cost of living place and there's a place that's more expensive, you can expect to get paid a little bit less. I'm not saying that's fair. You can use that to your advantage because obviously for you, it might work out well. But don't undercut yourself. Don't take too little. Make sure you ask for what you're worth. I know it's difficult, and you might feel a bit nervous about asking for what it is, but it's not crazy hard to find out how much people are getting paid in different countries. If I'm pretty sure there definitely is a Google Sheets thing for this floating around the internet, and the differences are huge. So if you do have a couple of, well, at least a professional credit in there, so you're not as high a risk to a studio, and you are asking for some money and you're negotiating, just say what you're comfortable with. Like think about when you're working out what your day rate would be like as a freelancer. It's that thing of you've got to work out what covering your bills costs. Don't forget tax. Don't forget all the other bits, and then add at least 20% for eventualities. That kind of stuff that might happen, unexpected things. It might seem like a big amount of money, but that's what you should, at the minimum, start at. Because otherwise, what will happen is you will have to work perfectly without a single mistake to just hit your baseline, and that's not achievable. You work and you get burnt out. You'll be like, I don't know, 40 and you'll look 80 because you've just been working in an animation too long on the breadline sort of thing. So most artists undercharge, and studios make decent money. So I'm not talking like rip them off like £1,000 a day sort of thing, $1,000 a day, whatever. We're just talking like maybe $10 to $50 more a day. That might not be in extreme circumstances, maybe $100 if you're massively undercharging, but that difference is going to make a huge difference. At £10 a day in the UK, it adds up. So we've got a little question here. I'm going to have a little read. So if someone has experience on a lot of different areas, rigging, motion graphics, character animation, should they have a different reel for each category? What if the material is not enough? So that's a really good question. So in answer to that, you can't do all the jobs at once. If you're struggling to get work, or you've done some training in all these areas, I'd say pick two maximum, one as your primary and the second one just as your secondary, as the things that you want to get work in. Realistically, if you are skilled in motion graphics, character animation, and rigging, you won't manage to keep up all those skills to the same level because it's just too much work. Like earlier on in my career, I used to do motion graphics animation. I do a bit of character animation. I do a bit of editing, like directing stuff, for commercial projects where I'd basically take on loads of roles and do it myself. And loads of people do that. It's a good way of building experience. And I'd build characters and things, not like in Toon Boom, but I'd put together character packs and so on. And what happens is, as you start to hone in on one of those areas, you start to become more proficient, more technically kind of like, I don't know, experienced in that area. And then the other thing drops away. Like I used to be killer at After Effects, go back 10, 12 years. I used the very first like Duic, which is kind of a common animation tool in After Effects. I tried it or looked at it about a few months ago, and that thing has changed. It's so complicated now. Like when I first tried it, it was so simple because I don't really use After Effects anymore for animation. And that's an area of my skill set that I still know my way around it to do the things that I used to do, but I do have to kind of jog my memory. It's not quite as fresh as it used to be. So don't try and keep all the plates spinning, because again, you'll get burnt out. And don't be afraid to just pick one thing and say, right now, this is what I love. Now, if you don't know what that is, maybe keep them going a little bit longer. Maybe try and do a little project yourself. Maybe just do a couple of little jobs and see which one starts to feel more natural. I did that as well, and I didn't really like the motion graphics stuff so much. It was kind of pleasing to do, but it was also a little bit like, for me, I found it not as interesting as character animation. So that's the route I went. So I would try and hone in terms of reels, pick one and try and build it together. At the start, you might have a reel with them all on, but it depends how much content you have. I wouldn't go over 3 minutes. Probably best to keep it lower. You can have a reel that's just a minute long, and that's fine. But so if you can get a minute of each, amazing. The thing you don't want to do is just put stuff in that you're not like absolutely blown away by. Like, don't put anything in that you're not, this is amazing. And when I say that, if you've got low self-esteem and confidence with your work, maybe ask a few people's advice and say, I'm thinking of putting this in and this. Can you pick out of these 8 things your 3 favorites in terms of what you think stands out to you? And you can ask friends and family, but make sure you balance that with people who are in the industry. If you do have a reel and you kind of like, I really just don't know what I should keep and what I should take out, look at like Reddit forums and stuff. You can always send it to me. I'll have a quick look. And never mind looking at someone's reel and kind of saying, yeah, that's amazing, drop that piece. I wouldn't put that in if I were you. You've got to be a little bit thick-skinned when you get to that sort of thing, because people are trying to help you, but they're just giving you their personal interpretation. So I might say leave that out. Somebody else might say keep it in. It's just kind of everyone's best guess, but definitely keep it on the shorter side. And if in doubt, cut out everything that's not needed. If in doubt, leave it out. You can combine rigging, motion graphics, character animation into one reel, but then you are kind of advertising that you don't have the experience. But if that's reflected in your CV, like I'm fresh out of university or studying, or I'm new into the industry, your pay level is probably going to reflect that a little bit, but that's okay. It's to be expected, and it's going to kind of say it in your reel anyway. But make sure you say the areas you are interested in. So if you are applying for a rigging job, maybe say, like my rigging is from 0 25, like from 25 seconds in, and send them a link with that. So when they click it, it starts at the rigging showreel. Kind of helping the recruiter with that sort of thing is gonna win you some favors. So I would go for that if you can. Now I'm going to see if I was going to see if I could share something else, but no, I can't. I'm not going to fiddle with that for now. It's okay. We've got plenty of questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to probably do another live stream next week, and I've got a short film in production at the moment. So I'm going to share some stuff from that, because one of the questions I had, well, one was quite direct, and then the other ones were kind of around the idea of making your own stuff, was about where to start with a short film. And it's something that I find difficult myself. Like there's this real kind of like imposter syndrome. Everybody gets it, and then you kind of find something else to do, and before you know it, you've like cleaned the house from top to bottom, or you've taken up hiking or cross country skiing just to avoid starting your film. Those kind of, or maybe you just sat in front of the TV without it even being on. It's that sort of thing that's difficult. But there's I can't remember who said this, but there was a thing about the resistance that you feel, and when you feel that resistance, it often means that's the direction to go. Like that's the thing that you're scared of, because you're scared of failing, and it's hard to push through. So how to start a film, I've got a couple of tricks that I use to make myself do something that I'm a little bit nervous about doing, in terms of creatively putting myself out there. That's why I actually started this live stream as well, was to just kind of like ease myself back into talking to people, because I haven't been doing it as much. And I do it on a one-to-one, but kind of creatively putting it out there, because I think it's really cool that everybody has their own individual story. Even if we all tried to do the 17, 18 people in this call right now, if everybody told exactly the same story and was given a blueprint to do it, it would be different. Everybody's would be different, because you wouldn't be able to avoid putting your own individual stamp on it. And then you imagine getting more freedom and being told to run with that and change it and do this and do that, and then being told to do nothing at all, and off you go, and you just kind of make your interpretation from one tiny little spark of a story. That's the thing that's really cool. And when I remind myself that, I'm like, yeah, I want to make stuff. That's why everyone gets so buzzed when they go to animation festivals or film festivals. If you haven't seen the video that I did about film festivals, have a watch and see what you think, because I literally went to watch an hour and a half shorts program for animation at the Manchester International Animation Festival, and it was ace. It was like proper fired me up, and I was like, right, that's it. I'm going to make 8 films a year and that kind of thing. And it's just that never happens. But you can really get yourself enthused by making sure you consume the right sort of stuff. Like get off social media and just kind of try and find some things, like some quiet time where you've got one thing that you can focus in on. That can be going to the cinema, to be honest. But trying to find something that's a little bit different from what you'd normally do, and then it kind of often is the best way to inspire yourself. So next week I am going to be sharing some stuff, if I can work it out, I've got Streamlabs OBS, so I need to play around with it. But I'm pretty sure I can work that one out. So I'm going to share some stuff from the short film and things about the development. And you'll see this very, very sort of slow process of making a short film. It's only going to be 2 minutes long, so it shouldn't be hopefully too tenuous, but it will be shared next week. So I'll go over that question a bit more then, and the process and the tools and the things I'm using. Oh, hi, Tatiana. Yeah, you did the course last year. Amazing. Thanks. You do have to excuse me as well. There's people's names who I recognize, but I'm rubbish with names anyway. So if I forget who you are, I apologize. That's just who I am. I'm terrible with names and places. My wife takes the mick out of me for when I'm driving because I'll forget. I think it took me 2 years to remember how to drive back to where I live now. I've been missing the turn off and stuff. We can't be good at everything, So yeah, I'm rubbish with directions and faces. Okay, so yeah, this goes actually back. This is quite an interesting one about when is a rig finished. Now, you might think that's kind of an obvious question, but I don't think it is. It's a little bit like, when is animation finished? Well, a rig is finished for me when it does the job for the animators. It allows them to do the things that they want to do with the character. So if you aren't an animator, and it does go into this, maybe try and find someone to test it out. Now, you're in luck because there's more people who want to animate than there are who want to rig. So you should be able to find somebody who wants to try it out. Pop it on Gumroad and hi, Catherine. Pop it on Gumroad and say, hey, does anybody want to try this thing out? And it's a good thing to collaborate in animation. As I've just explained, I'm making a 2-minute film and it's going to take me months to finish because I'm doing it myself. Now, if you collaborate in animation, you can halve that work. So don't be afraid to kind of say, hey, maybe you can move this thing and tell me, just play around with it and do a test. I've seen some really cool tests done with one person is inspired by design, another person builds a rig, another person animates it, another person does the background. And it's just like this really ace collaborative spirit that just, appears from one tiny little spark of imagination. So don't be afraid to ask people. They love a compliment, being told, I love your design. Can I rig it? I love your rig. Can I animate it? So yeah, throw it out there. See if people can rig it and get the feedback. It doesn't take long to, not to rig it, to animate it. It doesn't take long to do a few poses. The start of animation is pose testing. So you'll start with a few keys. You can do just 2 poses. That's maybe half an hour or something, maybe an hour one time. There's a lot of people out there who love playing around with a new rig. So, and then they'll give you the feedback, and that's a cool thing to do. If you are a rigger and you're planning on making more rigs in the future, you could always say to them, I'll pay you back by, giving you my rig that I'm going to build for free, or you can play with it, and you've got more rigs to put on your reel and you can play with them. Everybody's always looking for variety and so on. So yeah, that's really the answer to that, is when it's ready for the animators, but you do need animators' feedback. If you're just testing it as a rigger yourself, just kind of click around and try and pose it a little bit, and see how it goes. And what else? Let me just finish answering this one. How to showcase. Okay, so I am going to do a video on building a rigging showreel, one for YouTube for free, so people will understand. Just for selfish reasons alone, just so when I get asked this question so much, and I'm just going to direct people to this video. That's why I started doing YouTube, was to answer the little questions that people ask me in and around the courses I run. As the kind of knowledge in Toon Boom and other stuff around animation kind of lifts up and it gets spread on the internet, it's sometimes hard to find it. But if somebody asks me a direct question and I can say, look at this video, then that's perfect. And I do that now for my stuff, for other people's stuff. So hopefully that will be helpful. But yeah, you're kind of showcasing the skills and things that you've applied through the rig to show how you set it up to move the character and so on. So that's what you're really looking for in a rigging showreel. Specific format online, YouTube, as decent quality as you can make it, minimum HD format. Avoid annoying background music. And when I say annoying, like, it's personal preference. For me, like, I think I did my first animation reel and I put a background track of like System of a Down. If anybody knows that band, it's relatively kind of like, for some people, they'd say that's their least favorite kind of music. And I quickly learned to change that to something more palatable for the general taste. What you've got to think of is lift music, that kind of like Muzak kind of thing. Not saying everybody should use that, but there's a reason why so many people put jazz or wordless music as animation background tracks, ambient stuff. It's kind of moved into YouTube, Instagram reels and things like that now, where everybody has that kind of chilled out, like chill hop stuff that you see on YouTube. It's very unoffensive. It's kind of like nothing of it really stands out. You've never like, oh, that track's amazing. Like go to chill hop 45 minutes in. It's just kind of, it creates a base pace level for the animation to go to. You have to be careful in an animation reel that it doesn't pace your actual, what you're seeing on screen, but you just want something that just ticks over. Yeah. So think about when you go in a lift, you don't generally go, oh, that was an amazing track. Or listen, that you guys want to go in that lift? There's an absolute banger on in there. You never generally say that. If you do, let me know the lift, because that sounds cool. But maybe you should just have a look around YouTube's free music as well, because they have a lot of kind of just general tracks. I won't overthink it, because most recruiters will mute because they're talking as well. They're often talking as they're viewing reels and so on. And transitions, nothing too crazy, nice and clear. I wouldn't go mad with transitions, if any at all, to be honest. If you're looking for an editing position, obviously that's a different kind of thing, or directing, but that should be a different reel altogether. Now, I said that thing about combining skill sets into a reel. If you're at the very start, that is okay. It's not ideal. Not for editing or directing. Those should be individual reels, because it's a very different kind of ballpark. Okay, so to the questions in the chat. Okay, so love to hear more about your thoughts on teaching animation or puppeting. I'm looking into going into the area as a professor, long-term goal. Okay, well, Catherine, if you want to type your question and I'll answer this one to Lou Animations. Right, so the idea of teaching in animation and puppeting. I like the idea of puppeting as well. I don't know if that means like stop motion puppeting or actual puppeting, kind of closer to the theater stuff. That's a very interesting area as well. There's a lot of like crossover between that and animation. Now, yeah, the thoughts are, it's interesting. I really enjoy teaching. I have done it for a while. Some people think that this was my first time teaching. It's not actually. I started doing teaching almost straight away from university. I helped people out with their final films after I finished my final film. Then I started doing chairing like life drawing sessions where I'd organize like the model and the poses and stuff. And I was learning a lot on the job at the time, and that kind of keeps you energized to kind of have to keep learning. And there's other things I did and helped out with. And then I did some later on, I did some like backpacking. I did a residency at Royal Melbourne Institute in Australia, where I was making a film, and then I'd do things like little lectures of how I'm doing this and so on, give students feedback. So I think if it's something you're interested in, you're passionate about subject matter, it's kind of a no-brainer if you are keen to get into it. My main advice would be to not listen to like naysayers with that sort of thing, because sometimes this isn't just for teaching, it's for everything. There's so many people who say, there's loads of people who are doing it. Somebody actually got in touch with me the other day and said about animation, and said, "There's so many 2D animators now. I don't know if I should go into it anymore." No, try it. Like if you don't try, uh, I'm not saying like if you're older and you've got kids and a mortgage and stuff to just throw your job in the air and right, I'm going to be an animator with no plan. But if you have an interest, you should really try and pursue it, because you're always going to get that what if you don't, which is going to make you grumpy when you're older. You're going to be like a bit miserable. So you should try in some way, I think, if you really want to try something. And I think it's super rewarding to teach, to give back. It keeps you interested, it keeps you sharp. I've learned more from teaching than I learned when I was trying to learn how to animate. I know it sounds a bit of a paradox, but you do learn loads because your brain is like, it's on overdrive, because you're kind of making sure that you have as much to help the people that you are trying to help, and therefore it kind of gives you this creative energy as well. um, some of the most inspiring people I've ever met are students, people who are so buzzed about getting into making stuff. They're hyped up, they've got ideas, and they haven't been worn down by people who are saying, well, maybe you should take a sensible job or whatever. So yeah, keep the dream alive, give it a go. And different opportunities all over. I don't know exactly where you are living, residing in the world right now, but if you're in Europe, lucky you can move around. Oops, let me just check. Okay, can you all still hear me? Yes, no, maybe. It says I'm still live, so that's cool. Okay, good. Hopefully it didn't break up there. You notice how the god of YouTube said, I start to tell you about making sure that you follow your dreams and don't like give in to the man sort of thing, and then it sort of decided to cut me off. Um, but yeah, I think I was at the end of what I was saying there. Just try it out, see how it goes, and make a plan and give it a go. There's a really good quote. I don't know if I am misquoting this quote, but people always overestimate what they can do in a day/week and underestimate what they can do in a year. And I think that's a really good way to sort of live your life. Like, be a bit more like the tortoise versus the hare. Take your time with things. Don't try and rush creativity, animation, making films and stuff. It's still going to be there, so there's no point rushing. There's no like massive time thing. It's a slow race. So take your time with it and make a plan. And if you're trying to get into the industry, or try not to look at it as like this is the end goal. It's a point on that journey. And when you get into an animation studio, into the industry, that's not it. You don't just get like a gold medal and off you go. You are then that's You've got to be happy with what you're doing, because then it just becomes a job. That's not to put a downer on it. It can be really fun, but you need something to sustain you. And that's why you should try and go for the things that you're really interested in, because that's more likely to sustain you. So try to avoid just going super safe, just because you're like, oh, not sure, don't think I'll be able to do that. Well, you definitely won't do it if you don't try. Okay, looking into animation roles in the past, something along the lines of 2D retake animator using Toon Boom Harmony, but I haven't found anything like that. Are roles like that few and far between? Okay, so that's a good question. Yeah, it's kind of, those roles often aren't advertised, and the lower entry level roles, just because well, an entry level role generally is either sent to like a direct, I don't know, a lot of places will contact a university when people graduate, and or they'll put it online. um, they are fewer and far between, just because a retake animator, there tends to be, I think when I worked at a studio here in Manchester at Brown Bag Films, they had one retake animator potentially. You'd have one per episode doing, and then you'd have like 20 something other people doing other things. So there's, proportionally, percentage wise, a lot less people doing retakes. A retake animator is more of a traditional job, as far as I'm aware. It's for more high-end production thing, because a lot of retakes gets pushed back in cutout animation. They get pushed back to the animators. Like I'd sit there and I'd get 3 retakes come in, and then I don't know, somebody supervisor says, "Oh, can you just like turn those around pretty quickly?" Because it's less paperwork to then explain the shot and what they're after to a retakes animator. So they only really do that if it's going to take longer, therefore higher end, therefore high-end TV, big budget, or film. If you're looking to get into 2D animation and you want to be an animator, I'm imagining you're not looking to be a retakes animator forever. If you want to be a 2D animator, whether that's hand-drawn or rigged cutout, aim for that. Like have the confidence. Like I know, Catherine, that you can do that, no problem. Okay, so it's not beyond you. So shoot for the animation role. Don't be afraid to say, like I'm still looking to build up my experience, but I want to be a 2D animator. I'm looking for more feedback on my reel and so on. And then we go back to that question that I was answering earlier on about what to put in the reel for a junior animator role. But aim for that one. That advice goes to everybody who's starting out. So many people who are students say, just graduated, looking for my first opportunity. I know that seems really honest and nice, but I try to be a bit more like fake it till you make it sort of thing. Like, if you have decided that you want to be in 2D animation or you're a character animator, advertise yourself as that, and then explain your experience level rather than make it sound like I'd love to be this, but I'm not this, because that's a kind of like a mental switch to a recruiter when they see somebody who's, for me at least, they're kind of like, it sounds like they're not sure, what they want to do. And I don't want them to come into a role and me spend time helping them out, training them up, only to be like, not into this. That's a big risk. Yeah. So I want somebody who's like, I want to be a 2D animator. I am a 2D animator, but I don't have this much experience yet. So work on that reel. Show them your enthusiasm. Show them that you've done. I've taken this rig off somebody else who wanted to, their rigging stuff. They wanted an animator to demo it for them, and there we have a cross connection already in just this tiny little chat on this corner of the internet. So that's a good way to build things up. And then start making contacts if you can, face to face, really, really good, or at least personal emails rather than just kind of throwing stuff out there like templates and things. There's anybody who is in the northwest of England. I know this is a very smaller area, but there's a thing called Motion North that's going on soon. They do little meetups, and you can go to listen to talks with other studios, not just animation, but things, motion graphics and other things. It's a good way to meet other people in the area. You might just meet one person if you go 3 times, but that one connection might help you. They might be like, oh, I'm looking for somebody who's a character animator who's free at the moment. And then they might remember you. That's how I got a lot of my early stuff, was just being like super keen and just getting in there, trying not to annoy people too much, but definitely in there and kind of saying, hey, this is what I do. And, eventually people remember you for who you are. You've got to remember that in this modern age, making myself sound ancient, but in this modern age of the internet, it's great. It's very easy to contact people, but there's a lot of noise out there. So you have to be really consistent with your message, with your personal brand. Not a massive fan of that term because it's very kind of like corporate, and there's more to you than that. But when you are trying to like basically create a virtual business card online, you have to be consistent if you're trying to get a job. So if you are, I want a job right now, make sure that no matter where somebody sees you online, it says to them, hello, my name's Catherine and I am a character animator. And that's it. It's as simple as that, because they'll get the message when it's on LinkedIn, when it's on YouTube, when it's on your personal website, when it's on Instagram. they know you're a character animator. That's my top advice for that sort of thing. So we've got about 10 minutes left. Let me see if there's anything else. There was a couple of technical questions around Toon Boom. I'm not going to do them this time because I can't work out how to share my Toon Boom screen. But I will answer. One of those people emailed me, so I will answer you in an email. And what else? Okay. If there's no more questions from the chat, I'm just going to see if anybody else has any final. If there's another. Oh, actually, Praveen asked me about daily rates. Daily rates, I did kind of touch on it a little bit. I'm not the oracle when it comes to like how much you should charge. I'll just refer you back to basically making sure that your core costs are covered and then add 20% on top. Yeah, so all your bills, 20% on top. Don't be afraid to look online. There is a unionized rates thing that went around earlier this year that was a little bit high. I'm not saying people aren't worth that, but make sure you can back it up. It goes back to that risk thing. Like if you're asking for a lot more money than somebody else, you need to really be able to say to them, yeah, but I'm going to give you this work and it's going to be so good and you're going to have to put so little into me in terms of like takes, notes and anything else. I can basically lead a team. If somebody goes off sick, that's when you're worth your money. But you have to tell them that. Otherwise, they'll be like, why is this person $350 a day and this person $250? Like, that's not a good way to do it. If you think you'll get the job because you're low, generally people avoid a rate that's too low because it's too weird. You seem like there's something here. There's a catch. Like, what are they going to do? Try to keep your rates up. And remember tax. Remember the tax, because the tax will kick your ass. Tax and national insurance in this country, I think I don't know what that is in Social Security in America. But yeah, make sure you allow for that and you should be good. Okay. So no final questions in the chat. So what I'm going to do is answer this final one. So do you draw for fun still? How? I find it hard to do so now I work in animation. Okay, so this is from somebody who's in the animation industry. It feels like work because there's so much about constantly improving your drawing online and in the advice given out. I think that's online as well. I'm exhausted. Yes, I am too. Just reading that comment. I've also been there. It is exhausting. And so, like what I was saying earlier on, try to get that balance. You got to remember why you got into drawing in the first place, or animation, or making things. Like everybody's creative at this like kind of core level, and you need to tap into that and make sure that you can disconnect from the financial, like monetary return of I get paid for doing this many shots, so to speak, because animation can be quite hard in terms of a creative career for that. I find there's this like sneaky little link of, yeah, but 20 shots equals this and this many, because you get told so many seconds per day, per week, and whatever. And then you start to equate speed of creation to financial return. And then you get your value from the financial return and the creation becomes secondary. And it might sound a little bit like complicated, but the idea is that you lose the original, I'm creating because I love creating. That starts to become overshadowed. So you have to find something that doesn't have that shadow. Yeah. So my thing is sketchbooks. Like this is the thing that I really like to do. I keep a lot of these little moleskin things. I've also got bigger pads here like this. If anybody, this is going to be a really nice little quick tip. If anybody wants to reignite that spark for drawing and doodling, no matter how much your inner saboteur is telling you that you're useless and you can't draw and you shouldn't draw again, everybody in this chat can draw. Here's the cool one. So I got this from a book about drawing comics. I've forgotten what it's called. I'm sorry. I'll see if I can find the book later on. But this one is there's a subject, like here, this was cars, and you draw the first one in like 3 minutes, then 2.5. Oh, 3.5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and 5 seconds here. And so you see, like, there's kind of like a happy medium gets hit where you're drawing something and you start to feel like your natural style come through. Like there's a time there that I'm comfortable with. For me, 15 seconds is something that I quite like. I like drawing quick. I like gesture drawing. So that kind of translates. That's a good way to break yourself out because you don't have enough time for your conscious mind to start sabotaging and saying you should be doing something else. You're like against the clock. So set yourself a little alarm if you can. You can have breaks between each drawing, and then the sketchbooks thing, you'll see like I'm quite keen on. Let me see if I can pop this up here. So this is like gesture. It's a bit blurry, but that's quite a quick sketch. There's things like I do a lot of tiny little pen drawings and people on the beach and so on. So this sketchbook is from 2018. I started it. So I've got quite a few going at any one time. And I generally will draw. This was started in Reunion Island, of all places. So this is the windy roads. And I'll try and use it as a bit of like a travel diary because like I would never remember this guy who tried to sell me some bananas up in the hills of Reunion unless I'd drawn him. And then it goes to Lanzarote. This is where the watercolors start to come out. So I really like using watercolors because they kind of stop you being too fussy. Just a bit of color for characters and so on. And got a few more. So these are generally really, really quick. I'm talking no more than 30 seconds per person. This sketch up here took probably about 10 minutes. But I generally try and be quite quick just so I don't faff around. There's notes in here about ideas. This is a trip to Bamber Castle area in Northumberland. This is my mum and my now wife. And we've got, lots of different things in here. So this is kind of like my personal escape from, this is actually from Greece, a recent trip. And so I go of styles and changes in mood and kind of like the colors I'll use will become a little bit darker and less saturated if I'm not in an amazing mood or everything seems a bit glum outside or if it's the first day of sort of spring, everything will be very colorful and I'll maybe focus more on the flowers and they'll be drawn larger and so on. And it's kind of like an escape and a break from the thing where, this, I don't hardly ever, you people here are the first people to see that sketchbook other than maybe one friend and Josie, my wife, and my dog. So, but he doesn't care. So it's it's kind of personal to me. It's like a diary, and it keeps me sort of sustained at a kind of a creative soul level, should I say, rather than always having to make stuff to sell stuff. And how many times have you been told when you do something nice that somebody, without wanting to hurt you, says, "Oh, you could sell that," and all they've done is create a link between the financial value and something that you were doing just for yourself. So try not to, always have that link. If you like drawing pictures of flowers or plants and painting them, you don't need to set up an Etsy to sell them. You can just do them for the fun of it. And I'm going to leave you with that. So thank you everybody for showing up today. I'm really pleased. It's been great fun chatting. I was pretty nervous about doing this. I talk to people all the time, and like, there's something about being live on the big YouTube that was a bit nerve-wracking. But anyway, hopefully, when I press end stream, this will go onto the channel, and you'll be able to rewatch it. I don't know if I can edit it or anything, but yeah. And I'm going to post on social media and on the email list. If you are on the email list, feel free to sign up on the website, adamsanimationacademy.com. And you'll find out about things like the next one of these, which is going to be next week. And that one, I am going to share some stuff about the short film, maybe do a bit of doodling and stuff on my new little toy. And I'll see you all maybe then. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll wish you all a good week. Thanks, everybody. See you soon. Bye.